Any opportunity I have to talk about this, I will take it, because I absolutely despise these liberals and Democrats, leftists, who have no idea what they're talking about on the issue of homelessness, who are continually making the problem worse, but speak with some kind of righteous indignation as if every one of us, everyone else, is doing something wrong when these people won't bother to lift a single finger. Talking to you, Kyle Kulinski. You are despicable, dude. You've lost your mind. You need to sit down, shut up, and do your homework. From a guy who doesn't know what a farm looks like, I'd be a little bit chill on coming out and insulting people who are actually trying to solve a problem that you and your ilk make worse.
Tim Pool dismantles Kyle Kulinski's smug, out-of-touch take on homelessness, exposing the arrogance and ignorance behind his arguments. Kyle totes his opinion on something he has no idea what he's talking about, and only makes himself look worse than he already is, if that's even possible.
Forgive me for being so upset, but this one really bothers me because I've dealt with the issue of homelessness. Not only have I been homeless, but I've actually sought to help the homeless, and I've worked for these companies, these nonprofits, these networks, and I will tell you what the problem is. And the problem is not that we need more money, that we can just pay our way out of homelessness. But let me show you what Kyle Kulinski says first. And you know what? I'd be a little bit more respectful if the dude himself would be as well. But Kyle, you are a moron. Okay, I'm sorry, dude. I try not to be so overly angry on these things, sometimes dispassionate, I would say. But when you come out spitting and insulting and being as angry as you've been for this time, despite being so massively wrong, at a certain point, someone would say, dude, you're an idiot and you need to stop. Okay, I'm going to break this down for you because you clearly have zero experience in the problem of homelessness. You have done nothing to help any of these people while you sit on your high horse and insult Elon Musk and everybody else, despite other people actively trying to solve these problems. So Kyle Kulinski says all of these pathetic little weasels desperate to suck off their robber baron daddy Elon are like, actually ending homelessness costs more. How about this, Kyle? I actually did do work in homeless shelters. I actually did help the homeless and work to try and solve these problems, having experienced it periodically myself. As an individual who believes in hard work, sometimes falling on hard times, I found myself sleeping in my car. A couple nights, I slept on a park bench. When I used to work at the airport in Chicago, I would just sleep in the pilot's lounge. Not supposed to, but I had nowhere else to go. Fortunately, I was able to get a job. I was able to save up money, and it was a struggle. Now, most people who are homeless, that's not who they are. It is rare that someone who is of sound mind and body and willing to work ends up homeless, but it does happen. These people quickly find their way out of it. Not every single person. But let's talk about what you said. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the answer is $20 billion, so I'm correct. California is full of grifter con artists profiting off of homelessness and stealing the money. Pause. You're right. That is true. Something these idiots would admit if it wasn't for their pathetic Elon bootlicking preventing them from telling the truth. But Kyle, you are so dumb you have no idea what you're talking about. But don't worry, I'll set you straight. The high number to end homelessness is $30 billion, so Elon still could end it with a pocket change. He doesn't give an F about homeless Americans, and these virtue-signaling fake, edgy, conservative-ish posters don't either. They'd rather simp for Elon than push him to get 650,000 Americans, including 32,000 veterans, off the street. Kyle, I implore you, please Google things. Maybe, I don't know, ask someone who's actually worked in the industry. I'm going to give you this first and foremost. California is full of grift con artists profiting off of homelessness.
Exactly. California is the poster child for throwing billions at a problem and making it worse. The so-called solutions are not solving anything. They are just lining the pockets of con artists and bureaucrats. It is a grift disguised as compassion, and the people suffering the most are the ones these policies claim to help. Tim nailed it.
They call it the homeless industrial complex. Not kidding. A lot of people make a lot of money doing nothing. But I will also tell you this, my friend, there's no real number to ending homelessness. So when you sit here and say these people could spend $20 billion to end the homeless problem, or that Elon could do it, or the government thinks it would cost this, that, or otherwise, you're wrong. Here's the original tweet. It would cost $20 billion to end homelessness in America. Elon is worth $350 billion. Kyle Kulinski. And Wokeness quoted it saying California spent over $25 billion in the last 5 years to end homelessness. Yeah, and they've really done nothing. But he's correct. California is a grifter state of con artists who make money off the problem. They don't seek to end homelessness, and homelessness is largely a problem of choice. Sorry, all the liberals and leftists are going to scream and bash their faces on the table, but it's true. I know because I have dealt with this for years. So in various places, and with respect to the privacy of these shelters, consider the nonprofits, and there are, and I don't want people like this to go after them. I'll leave them out of it. But I can tell you about what happens when you pull up to a homeless person living under a bridge, and you say, "Please come to the shelter. We have space for you." You know what they say? "F you." That's right. In Seattle, there was a group they called the Avrats. These were homeless kids. Some of them jumped on freight trains and rode them across the country, made their way to Seattle intentionally to be homeless and live in the street. These kids were late teens, early 20s. There is nothing on God's green earth that would make them stop living the life they wanted to live. You could go to them and offer them money, which they did. You could go to them and offer them a room with video games, and they had, and they'll say no. Often what they will do is they'll say, "Okay, I'll come with you." They'll go in, eat food, take a shower, wash their clothes, pack up, and jump out the door in 2 seconds. A lot of these kids stopped coming because they knew that if what would happen is the shelters would say, "Come to the shelter." They'd walk them in. They'd lock the doors. That's what some of the youth shelters do, because you're a minor, not supposed to be out on the street. So the kids would say, "Screw off. I'm not going anywhere near you." There's no situation where you just put them in a house and it solves the problem. There's a situation where you go to a heroin addict and say, "Get off the street and get clean." And they say, yes. In fact, the reporting is that Jordan Neely, a homeless man, was actually given treatment and a shelter, and he ditched it less than 2 weeks in. And I get it. And I've dealt with this. I am sick of these people saying these mindless platitudes. $20 billion could save it, but Elon's so rich. First of all, Elon can't even liquidate those assets. His wealth is tied to the stock he has in companies, and he's only allowed to sell at a certain point. But hey, it was that liberal judge in Delaware that barred him from getting his CEO pay package in the first place. So you want a man who's not legally able to liquidate his assets, and then pay for a homeless problem, which doesn't solve anything. End wokeness is right. If you took that $20 billion and you applied it the way all of these activist groups do, nothing gets solved. The problem only gets worse. Since COVID, and since the death of many of these industries brought on by Democrat governors and people Kyle Kulinski supported, we have seen more people lose their livelihoods and end up homeless. I am sick of these people who are making the problems, acting like they're going to be the ones to solve it, when all they're doing is saying, throw more money at something. Let me tell you a story. Many of these stories we saw during COVID. The government came in New York and other cities and cracked down and shut down small businesses. A restaurant with $30,000 worth of food in their refrigerators saw it all spoil. That food is gone, that money is gone, and they did not have the means to reinvest in the supply to reopen the store when the time came. So they shut down, and we saw family restaurants go out of business. These people lost their lives, they lost their jobs. And for the people who are already struggling to hold on, thanks to these lockdowns and the psychopaths who support them in these big cities, destroying the economy and destroying their lives, the bottom, who were barely making it by, lost everything, found themselves homeless. Several interviews popped up. There was a couple living in a camp in California. They had tents, and they said exactly this. "I was making very little, working at a gas station. I couldn't afford to pay my rent. When the lockdowns happened, I lost my job. I could not sustain myself. The money, the stimulus, none of it was enough. I lost my place. I can't live anywhere." Now they're homeless. What's your solution? Pump more government garbage into this? It's not solving the problem. No, I can say, if you're talking about the very rare circumstance where a hardworking man or woman loses their job, can't pay their rent, and becomes homeless, those people are pulled out in a week or two because the system is designed to help the people who seek to be helped. I was homeless. I got it really quickly. I never went to a shelter. Figured it out. And it's not easy. And I got to tell you, one of the things that really bothers me about people, let me tell you about people. And I know Kyle feels that empathy. I can respect that. But what bothers me is the arrogance and the ignorance that causes the problem to become worse. Okay? Stop being so high and mighty and stop being so arrogant when there are many of us who have tried really hard to actually figure out how we could solve that problem. And you know what I learned? I learned money doesn't solve it. And I was really dismayed because, when I was young, this is a long time ago, by the way, and I saw this problem, I thought, just like he did probably, I was like, a lot of these people might have been like me. We don't assume homeless people are hungry, and I would always mock people for that. They say, feed the homeless. I'm like, why? They're homeless, not starving. I learned a lot of these guys A lot of these young people would tell us outright, this is their choice. And that's when I said, I don't think the problem is what we think it is. The problem is people who choose to be homeless and people who want to do drugs and don't want to work. Sad reality. To the people who find themselves desperate and homeless, I feel for them. And those people are easily helped. That's the truth. But this crisis in this country of mass homelessness, it's not people who are like, man, I'm down on my luck.
Tim Pool exposed Kyle's arrogant takes and made it clear. The problem is not just bad policy, it is bad priorities from people like Kyle who refuse to deal with the uncomfortable truths. What do you think? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more bold and unapologetic content.